Hello, and thank you for joining the Hemp special session as part of the 2021 Virtual Southeast Regional Fruit and Vegetable Conference. I am Sarah Johnson, Scientific Director with SJ Labs and Analytics, and I will be the moderator for this presentation. Pesticide CEU and CCA credits are available for most presentations offered during the live Southeast Regional Conference. Check the Pesticide CEU guide for a list of approved presentations and participating states. The Pesticide CEU guide is located in the Event Resources tab under the Media Player. The guide is also available in the Resource Center located in the main menu of the conference platform. Please note, pesticide credits will only be available for registered attendees and only during the live conference. Credits will not be available for on-demand viewing. There are 3 simple step process to receive pesticide CEU and CCA credits. First, go to the audience chat box located on the left side of your screen and type your first name, last name, and states for which you are requesting credits. Again, go to the audience chat box located on the left side of your screen and type your name, first name, last name, and the states for which you are requesting credits. You will need to do this for every presentation to request CEU credits. The second step is to sign out at the end of every presentation. To sign out, go to the audience chat box and type your first name, last name, and the states for which you are requesting credits. You will be reminded to sign out at the end of each presentation. The third step is to complete the pesticide CEU registration. You only have to complete this registration one time during the conference. This is not required with every presentation. To access the pesticide CEU registration web link, open the pesticide CEU guide on the Event Resources tab located under the Media Player. The pesticide CEU registration web link is located on the front cover of the guide. This presentation is pre-recorded to reduce technical difficulties. We will be answering your questions live at the end of presentation. You can submit a question at any point during this presentation by typing your question in the questions box and pressing send. Don't forget to thank our 2021 conference sponsors and exhibitors by visiting the virtual trade show and featured products pavilion. Lastly, don't forget to join us each morning for coffee chats and each evening for networking. Check the conference agenda for details. Now, I would like to introduce you to Sarah Johnson, Scientific Director with SJ Labs and Analytics, who will be presenting Hemp Testing Overview. Sarah Johnson is the founder and Scientific Director of SJ Labs and Analytics, LLC, Georgia's first hemp-specific testing lab, and she is passionate about cannabis legalization. Sarah was born and raised in Brunswick, Georgia, and attended college at Georgia Southern University for her bachelor's in biology and Georgia State University for her master's in molecular genetics and biochemistry. Sarah is a career research scientist renowned for her innovation, method development, and technical analytical skills. She has accomplishments in new product development, including a patent pending and provisional patents. In addition to running daily operations at SJ Labs, Sarah also serves as a research coordinator for Normal Women of Georgia, on the Biotech Advisory Committee for Central Georgia Technical College, and participates in collaborative research efforts around the state. Today we are going to be talking about hemp testing, and we are going to hopefully by the end of this presentation answer the following 6 questions. Why test hemp? Who should test hemp? When should you test your hemp? What are the assay descriptions? How much should you budget? And what issues were there in year 1 in Georgia? We'll jump right into it. Why do we test hemp? We test it to be compliant with the law, for risk management of your crop, research and development, and taking a final product to market. So why do we test hemp in the first place? It all boils down to compliance, especially here in the state of Georgia. Georgia is following the USDA plan. 2020 was our first year growing and processing in the state of Georgia. And the state of Georgia decided that they would evaluate compliance by total THC. and that total THC value had to be lower than 0.3% plus or minus the level of uncertainty provided by the lab. That means that at the time of your state compliance test, your CBD is only 7 to 7.5%. Georgia is only concerned with the Delta-9 THC and THCA, which together make up the total THC value, the level of uncertainty provided by the lab, and compliance with USDA testing requirements. They are not concerned with pesticide residuals, with heavy metals, or any other safety tests that are advised for hemp farmers to get. Another reason we test hemp, especially for the farmer, is risk management. Weekly testing can ensure that you maximize your profit while remaining compliant to state and federal regulations. When you go for your state compliance test, your total CBD is only going to be about 7.5% CBD. But that's okay, because the state gives you 15 days after your state compliance sample for you to harvest your product. At that point, it's crossed the maturity threshold, and we have exponential growth in not only the mass and volume of your crop, but also the CBD level. But what we want to do when we make that decision to contact the state is be as close as possible to that line without crossing it. And the only way to get close and predictive values is to test often. I cannot say it enough. Once your hemp plant starts flowering, you should be testing weekly. That is the only way to ensure that you're going to have a profitable plant at the end of the season. Another reason we test hemp is for research and development. Research and development can be applied to this industry in several different areas, but a grower can apply research and development to decide how their grow method is working on their crop. If you're testing weekly, you can evaluate which varieties, which areas of your field, which variables are performing best. And you can make a decision about how you do your grow operation for the next year and build on those successes or correct those failures. On the flip side, a processor will do research and development to understand their extraction process. There are several methods for extraction, and depending on what equipment a processor has or experience, they may choose different methods. But it's important that they work through those developments, and that can take some time. We work with processors to do their potency and cannabinoid profiles to make sure that they're getting a clean extraction, a good decarboxylated product, and that it is free and clear of residual solvents. Ultimately, all this product we want to get to an end consumer, so we also help the processor in their formulations development. We help them understand if their dose rate is correct and if that has a bioavailability for the system uptake. As I mentioned, the farmers and the processors should be testing hemp. Farmers need to be testing hemp starting weekly when it begins flowering. You need to test 15 days prior to your harvest with your state compliance test. And you need to test after harvest before taking your product to market or to your processor. Processors should be testing during the development of new processes and products. They should test the raw biomass arriving to their facility, and they need to test the final product before the market. Also, I want to mention that retail shops should be testing with new distributors and vendors. You want to verify that whatever product it is that you're purchasing is actually the product represented on the COA. This has been a big problem in the industry. I always say to people that when approaching whether you should or shouldn't test, think about it as a way to protect your interests. When you're a farmer selling your product for a CBD value, you want to be sure that you're getting paid the most money possible. On the flip side, a processor wants to ensure that they're buying a product that is what they are paying for. So the farmer and the processor should both know what those values are when they come to the table for negotiation. Test your own product. Don't lean on anybody else to test your product If you're a farmer, test your product as a farmer and then take it to a processor. If you're a processor, be sure that you're testing what you have coming in. Always, always, always protect your interest. Testing can help you do that. This is an infographic that describes when in the hemp process you should be testing and what you should be testing for. Prior to your crop going into the field, you should be testing your soil for heavy metals, pesticides, and nutrient analysis. And if you plan to plant next year, now's a good time to get started on your pre-planting testing. During the growth cycle, you should be testing every 5 to 7 days during flowering. I cannot reiterate that enough. Once your plant starts flowering, start testing. After your plant has passed your state compliance test and the crop has been dried or cured, you're going to do your post-harvest safety test. These include a microbiology screen, a pesticide screen, heavy metal screen, a mycotoxin screen, a moisture and cannabinoid profile. Once your extraction process has been complete, you're going to test for terpenes, residual solvents, again a microbiology screen, and a potency cannabinoid profile. The final product getting to the consumer should consist of a full COA, terpenes, residual solvents, microbiology, mycotoxins, pesticides, heavy metals, and a cannabinoid profile. And as I mentioned earlier, the state of Georgia only requires that THC be tested. However, it's important as an industry that we represent ourselves with the highest standards. We have a lot of misinformation going against us, and we need to be transparent with the consumer so that they can feel comfortable using these really therapeutic products. So I urge all of my growers and processors to go above and beyond the standard of law and do a full panel compliance test so your consumer understands exactly what it is they're getting their hands on. Cannabinoids are a group of compounds produced by the cannabis plant that interacts with the endocannabinoid system. The most common cannabinoids you're probably familiar with are CBD and THC. And while the state only cares about the THC, CBD is what the farmer or the processor is getting paid on, or CBG for that matter. We use an HPLC to differentiate between these cannabinoids and give a full potency evaluation. Terpenes are another value-added test. Terpenes are an aromatic chemical produced by the cannabis plant that has some, though understudied and not very well understood, therapeutic benefits. It's most commonly associated with the aroma that you smell from cannabis or hemp. To your right is a terpene profile for a Georgia hemp farmer. Terpenes are tested with a GCMS, and we get a list of about 22 chemical compounds, things called linalool or limonene, and then we quantify what we think that smells like. So after all of the analysis, we can say with a number exactly what it is that you smell when you smell this hemp plant. For example, this is going to be a woody, earthy, and spicy smell with a little bit of accents of fruits and florals and citrus. This is what we smell, and this is what connoisseurs are looking for specifically on their crop. Terpenes don't have as big of a role in the hemp industry as it does in the cannabis industry, but it's a very large value-added product in the cannabis industry. So as this industry moves toward medicinal or recreational cannabis, terpene profiles are going to become a lot more important. Everyone knows, of course, what a pesticide is, but the pesticide residual test for hemp specifically is screening for the presence of about 60 pesticides and fungicides frequently used in agriculture. Over here to my right is a picture actually off of our machine of a LC-MS diagram. This isn't all of the pesticides that we screen for, but you can see what the machine picks up and what it looks like when it's looking for these pesticides. Some of the common pesticides that we see in hemp products are metalaxyl and piperonal butoxide, which comes out of the mosquito truck, and metalaxyl is found in Riddlemil Gold and the generic version of Riddlemil Gold. Metalaxyl has a pretty long half-life. It's persistent in soil and can be picked up by the hemp crop, even if it isn't used on the hemp crop. That being said, it's at very low levels and very within the acceptable range of pass. We also test for mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are toxic chemicals that are produced by mold, and most notably, we care about the mycotoxins that are produced by Aspergillus species. So we're looking for aflatoxins and ochlatoxins. And lastly, we do a microbial screen. Microbial screen looks for the presence of bacteria or mold that may cause disease, specifically including E. coli, Salmonella, Enterobacter, and of course our Aspergillus species. To my right is a DRBC plate, which we use to do a mold count and to screen for Aspergillus species. In the center, you can see a bright yellow colony right here. This is actually our Aspergillus flavus. This is one of our 4 Aspergillus that we're screening for, and the presence of Aspergillus flavus in a gram of material is considered a fail for smokable product. However, it can be remediated in processed product. However, it has to be tested after the product has been processed. Heavy metals. In cannabis, we're concerned with cadmium, lead, arsenic, and mercury. To the right, these are the BCC action levels for heavy metals. Also known, BCC is the Bureau of Cannabis Control in California. Early research suggested that the cannabis plant, including hemp, could absorb trace amounts of heavy metals from the soil and store that into the plant tissue. We use heavy metal tests to verify that there's a lack of heavy metals in the cannabis plant. This reiterates the point of why you should be doing pre-season testing as well. Because of this school of thought that the hemp plant may be taking heavy metals out of the soil, it's important that our soil is clean prior to the hemp plant going in. How much should you be budgeting for your hemp grow? This is the average cost for an acre or a variety. If you are doing an acre with 2 varieties, you should double this price. Our first test that you're going to have to go through again is your preseason test. That includes your soil nutrient test, a pesticide screen, and metals test. That's going to run you roughly $300. Once you receive your clones, you should randomly sample 3 clones from each acre or each variety that you plan to plant. That's going to cost you $195. This isn't something that was done very much this year, and it caused a lot of problems in Georgia. Several folks ordered CBG varieties and ended up getting CBD varieties and didn't realize until too late that it wasn't a CBG variety, but it was in fact a CBD variety, and had to lose those plants as a result of failed compliance tests. On the flip side of that, some people ordered CBD varieties and got CBG varieties. And we had a few instances of mix-ups coming from some Western seed distributors that were true marijuana plants or hybrid plants that with a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's really important when you get your clones in that you verify that it's either CBG or CBD, if that's what you ordered, and that it isn't a hybrid, and that there is also not a marijuana plant. We can start to tell pretty early on what these plants are going to grow up to be. So the earlier you can get it tested, once the plant is about 6 inches high, 7 inches high, we can start to get a good estimate of what this plant is going to grow up to be. Once the plant's in the ground and you have flowering, you should be testing every week. Again, I cannot reiterate that enough. Test weekly once you are flowering. That's going to be about 5 to 7 tests throughout the season. At 6 tests per season, That's $390 that you will be spending per acre or per variety. And then you have your state compliance test. That's an additional $65. And the end of season full panel harvest test. That's going to run you roughly $500. You should expect to spend, therefore, $1,450 per acre or per variety for testing expenses alone. This does not include the sampling expenses or the state expenses to come out and inspect and sample your field. If you do not test, if you do not have a budget for testing, you have a 40% increased chance of failure. This year, we only had 2 farms who failed who were testing preseason. That's out of 130 farmers. Every other fail that happened were people who did not test prior to the state compliance test. Please get testing done. When your plant starts flowering, start testing. You cannot look at the crop and know when it's mature. You cannot tell by when the trichomes go from milky to rusty. This crop will be tested for state compliance tests prior to maturity. So it's very, very, very important that you are monitoring closely. If you do not have the budget to test, you will not be successful. And lastly, I really want to touch on some major issues that Georgia faced in their first season of hemp growing. Some of those issues are mold, earworms and their poop, root rot, and ants. Mold was a huge problem, and it touched pretty much everybody in the Georgia industry. To my right, you can see a hemp crop that has a pretty severe mold infection. At this point, there's nothing we can do to save that crop. However, preventative treatments are a great option to prevent the mold from happening. A biocide program should be adopted with every farmer. And that means spraying weekly and maybe even every 3 days from the moment that the crop goes into your field. You don't want to wait until you get mold to start treating mold because it's too far gone. So we want to use things like peroxides, peracetic acids, or vinegars in very dilute concentrations to help keep mold and bacteria at bay. Several farmers were successful at combating root rot by using and earworms. By using companion grows. Those seem to be some of the more successful farms this year in the state of Georgia. These crops did not seem to perform well as a traditional row crop, tightly grown. The crop that flourished, the crop that had the least amount of problems, were the ones that had a lot more space, that were grown in areas with other companion plants or ponds. Those really seem to be the better hemp crop. So if you're looking to get into hemp or cannabis or thinking about how to make a better crop for next year, I would definitely recommend looking into organic companion growth structures because those had some really great plants come out of them. If you're interested in some other hemp secrets and tips, you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter. Go to www.sjlabsandanalytics.com/contact us. Put in your information in the comments box, type newsletter, and you'll be added to our list. This is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out, make an introduction, ask me any type of question that you may have. Again, my name is Sarah Johnson. I'm the owner of SJ Labs and Analytics. My website is www.sjlabsandanalytics.com. You can find us on Facebook, /SJ Labs and Analytics, on Instagram at SJ_Labs, or you can give us a call at 478-259-7564. I appreciate all of your attention that you've given me, and I look forward to your questions.